Has anybody ever cited the Clean Water Act as an issue to clean something up and actually, because the Clean Water Act has always been in build mode.
Yeah.
We're doing terms of reference, doing this. Has anybody ever cited the Clean Water Act right now on an issue that got fixed because of the Clean Water Act?
Well, there were a number of communities who were ahead of the Clean Water Act and ahead, in fact, even ahead of the tragedy in Walkerton, like Oxford, for instance, Waterloo, Brant, Norfolk County. And they had done things like pass bylaws to control where intensive agriculture could be operated in proximity to their municipal intake wells. Similarly, McClenaghan County did a similar set of bylaws around sewage sludge spreading in proximity to their intake wells. And in the places where that happened, Norfolk County, Brant County, and McClenaghan County, those bylaws were challenged in court. And the one that made it all the way to the Supreme Court, unfortunately, went against the municipality. So, and unfortunately, were not supported by the province in those challenges. So even though at that point, by the time they reached the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court of Canada, we were well into the world of, passing the Clean Water Act and developing it. So those places have gone as far as they feel they can, and now they feel like they have to wait for the approved source protection plans in order to gain the strength, the superseding clause and the supersedes the Planning Act, et cetera, kind of stuff. But remember, those extra ability to enforce are going to pertain to the significant threats. So that's going to be the next level of issues is in those places where they thought they needed to put in extra boundaries, say, for spreading pathogen-laden material. Are they going to actually amount to significant threats in semi-quantitative risk assessment? And I guess we should start to be able to tell that soon, right, in terms of how the assessment reports are coming out.
I think you probably, based on your experience working with the MOE, would recognize that we don't speak with one voice in Ontario. I mean, the ministries are schizophrenic around some of these issues and won't agree with one another and choose not to agree with one another.
Yeah, and part of what happened with that set of appeals is a legacy of amendments from way back to municipal planning when multiple ministries were kind of pulled out of the planning and it went to this one window approach controlled by MMAH. And if MMAH made a decision not to involve MOE or MNR on an issue, then those staff weren't in, supporting the appeal, for instance. And that's what happened there.
Yeah, working silos, don't they? So we need
and there's continued tension with MMAH and with MEI, as it now is, formerly PIR, because of the places to grow issues and the implications of source water protection, especially vis-a-vis the future. And I don't know if you got into it earlier in the day, but the fact that we didn't have the module for the future water source protection was a big disappointment, and I think is actually potentially a breach of the Act, that there's nothing sitting there, given that the Act says we're supposed to protect future and present sources of drinking water. I kind of have it in the back of my head that one of these days we might have to take a run at that.
You mean the Places to Grow Act or the Source Water Protection?
Because the Clean Water Act says protect present and future, but when the modules came out for the technical rules for doing assessment reports, the future module was pulled out. If any of you had looked at it a while ago, before that you would have seen a module in there for future, and then that was pulled, and I think it was pulled in part because of these tensions with the other ministries.
Our water from Sudbury eventually directly goes into Georgian Bay. So we're contributing to all the downwater and downstream water. Does that mean Sudbury's Source Protection Committee should have some input into the Great Lakes?
Well, it may very well in that case because, Sudbury's flowing into North Channel and then into Georgian Bay and Lake Huron.
And I'm thinking of Eagle.
Which might also involve air deposition as well as, straight discharges. And air deposition is poorly dealt with in source water protection planning so far. And again, it's something that every once in a while we take a pot shot at that too. And but it's even though it's an important source of the contamination to the Great Lakes in particular, they're a big sink for a number of contaminants that are at levels of concern in the lakes. It's primarily, some of the pathways are primarily through air, but they're not being included very well or at all in source water protection planning. So it's a really good point. And vis-a-vis a particular source protection planning region and its neighbors, that's the kind of thing that was supposed to be encompassed by terms of reference and looking at the list of Great Lakes agreements that are to be complied with. So your terms of reference are done a while ago, and now you're well down the road for assessment reports. But it might be still something worth visiting to see what needs to be said.
But we need some working with the National Research Council and the lead for the Great Lakes, who's doing studies on the Great Lakes water quantity. And I think you brought up about water capital, right? About water capital, when are we working on the income of water versus the capital? And a statement he said, we always hit home for me. I don't live on the Great Lakes, but he said that the Great Lakes is a gift from the Ice Age. 99% of it is glacier melt, and 1% is recharge. And that was his view on the Great Lakes. So when you talk about water budget for the Great Lakes, we're talking about 1% of the Great Lakes is what we're working with as a budget.
That's right.
In and out. And I'm glad climate change is in here, because the evaporation is taking a great amount of that water away.
Yes. So two things on that. One is that the Climate Change Secretariat, I'm aware, has asked the Source Water Protection Branch of the Ministry of the Environment to make sure that the water budgets are including climate change modeling to greater extent than they were originally planning to do. I haven't seen the output of that, but I know there was that request. And then the other point on evaporation takes you to the other initiative that is underway, and that's the imposition of water charges. And so the high consumptive water charges are in place, but the medium and low still have to be put in regulation. And so again, that's another area to weigh in on going forward, is making sure that that actually happens. It's important that it happens, and then that it reflects the consumptive level. My apologies, that's probably not clear.
That's a part of the education. We're talking about education of people, what they understand about water. Is do they know where it's coming from and what the challenges are of getting good drinking water.
What the interplay of climate change is with respect to water quality.
Because I know we're blaming the states for taking too much water, but when we found out it was mostly evaporation. It was actually dropping the levels of the Great Lakes. It was not.
Yeah, that's a lot of surface area. So
yeah,
and then with warming, part of the models, the various models, is that with different warming scenarios and evaporation goes up. So yeah.
That's right. Especially in winter.
I've been waiting for the right time all day to say this. That is all true, and I don't in any way wish to minimize its importance. But one thing that I think, wearing the hat of Ontario Headwaters Institute, that we need to start thinking about is that climate change is going to affect everything upstream. So that 1% that's currently going in may really change. And it's easier to protect the Great Lakes than it's going to be to protect groundwater recharge, forest, runoff, headwater features, swamps, and ephemeral streams. So what I hope we get to is being able to go from the regional Great Lakes to the source water protection to the headwaters and move upstream in our addressing problems.
And that's all. Yeah, that's it. Because it's that 1% we need to worry about. If it's 100% of that 1% we need to worry about. And if you divide that 1% up, the problem becomes huge. Right? Then now you know where the problem is. Because people think there's lots of water in there. Well, you're working on the capital.
Well, the implication that you're saying, just to make it explicit, is that it's not, the 1% is all that there kind of is, variability around, but the climate change implications, including evaporation and extra flows and removals, can impact the rest of the 99%.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
There's no way to.
We're going to be working on the capital.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
right, thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.